This is the Little Moments Count radio podcast, created in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. Each episode, you'll hear interviews with early childhood experts on how to support the important brain development that takes place in the first 1,000 days of life, just through little moments every day. Learn more at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.
Good day to be Indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies are trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade.
Hey, Kadagi, to all my friends and
relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake in the cold tundra of the Twin Cities. Blowing, the snow's blowing. I'm in the house, and Wendy made a 2-story hut for our little animals out and back. So we're ready to go here. This is Native Roots Radio, and we talk about Native issues and Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Hey, this portion of the show is brought to you by Little Moments Count. Little Moments Count is a statewide collaborative working to educate people on the importance of the first 1,000 days of life for our littlest relatives. You can find out more at littlemomentscount.org. And I just want to let everybody know that they have this really awesome texting program. You can text a number, and they can also text you with Lakota, Dakota traditional things as well. So make sure you head over to littlemomentscount.org, and we're really happy to have Barb Fabre here in collaboration with them.
Welcome, Barb. How's it going?
Bonjour. It's going great. How about you?
Pretty good. Just really cold, talking about the weather and the wind and, the Minnesota stuff's happening here in the Twin Cities. And so we're hunkered down here, but it's great to have you on. And, before the kind of the end of the year here now, we're heading the holiday season. But, I want to jump into this because I know our time's limited with you. The Indigenous Visioning that you own and run, can you tell us a little bit about tribal licensing that you guys are campaigning and starting right now?
Sure, happy to share. So in my experience, I've created a tribal childcare licensing program that was hugely successful and and I've also worked with other tribes on their tribal childcare licensing. Excuse me, throughout United States and Indian country, throughout the states themselves, we're facing a child care crisis. We have been for many years. While there are lots of things that we can do to help support child care, this is one thing that tribes can do pretty easily. We need more child care programs within communities so parents can work. And employers are facing shortage of employees, and childcare is a large part of the problem. It's not readily available for parents in their own community. And some of the, many, through a few of our initiatives, we've surveyed employers, and they said that childcare is a huge issue, and they have a lot of employees. It's one of the top 3 reasons employees miss work, or they're late, or there's frequent absences. So Indigenous Visioning really wants to work with tribes and support tribes and help them create childcare businesses in their community for their families.
That's exciting. And I know Ogimaa, where she's at, because I don't know if it's because of COVID or what, but childcare is hard to find everywhere, not just Indian country, right, Ogimaa?
Yeah, so I don't live near my reservation. I'm about a few hours south of it. I'm closest actually to the Mille Lacs Nation, but I am unable to find adequate or affordable childcare in my area at all. I can't find anything for an infant under 1 year old. Nobody will take an infant under age of 1. And then even if they do, I'm looking at the only place I can afford being an unlicensed or unrated, basically, home care center, which is, essentially somebody just running a daycare from their home, which is not bad necessarily. And I think a lot of people like that for their children. But if you want to have your child in a place where education and culture is important, then you have to really pay a lot of money for that. And it would negate me or my husband working. Like, we would go to work to pay for the childcare and there would be no money left over. So I know I'm not the only person who's dealing with that, and then we have an older child too that needs care. And even just the aftercare at her school, if we have care from 3 to 5 p.m., 5 days a week, is over $200 a month, which is lower than a lot of the other rates in town, but still, a pretty significant portion of a monthly income. So it's been coming for a long time, Barb. And I know you know that. It's even harder in Indian country where you're on a reservation and there's limited options.
Yes, what you said is absolutely 100% right. And you're right. A lot of families are experiencing that, both in on tribal land and in urban communities. So tribal licensing is pretty simple process, and it so not only brings childcare within the communities, and then families don't have to drive half hour. I've heard of families having to drive an hour to childcare and then come back. And then large. You're right. It's very expensive, and there are a lot of programs offered by the tribes and the states that help support childcare. There's early childhood scholarships. There's childcare assistance, and that's what those programs are there for. And so, but just finding childcare is, you were absolutely right. It's, and so tribes can do that. And, the benefits of them having it in them licensing and monitoring and training and supporting is that they can make it a high quality Indigenous. It would be a dream if we could find a way to employ childcare providers as employees through the state or through the tribe, so that they can have benefits as well. It's a tough job and you don't get benefits, so we need to make it sexier for people to go into childcare, and it's very beneficial. I did childcare for a while, and I managed childcare, and I monitored tribal childcare providers. It's a very rewarding career, but we just need to support them, and for tribes, license them and monitor them. That's going to help.
Well, it sounds like there is a huge need for this. We're here with Barb Fabre and with Indigenous Visioning, and we're talking about, tribal childcare licensing and within the communities. And, I just think, someone that's interested should reach out to you, right? And that's on their tribal land and do that, because there is a huge need, and there's also, money involved too that you could make.
Right. They're small businesses. So for tribes who are trying to have successful economic development, they need childcare, just like they do housing, transportation, and jobs. So childcare is a part of that. And just thinking outside the box. So in early 2023, Indigenous Visioning and All Nations Rise are going to put out a national marketing campaign to support tribes to consider doing their own tribal licensing.
Wow, that's exciting. And oh, go ahead, Ogimaa. I just wanted to make sure Barb lets our listening audience, because we're all over Turtle Island here, on 11 stations in the civic media and the Twin Cities in Wisconsin. Let them know how they can get a hold of you, and then go ahead, Ogimaa, with your question.
Sure. Go ahead, Barb. Let's get your contact information on the airwaves, and then I'll ask you my quick question.
Sure. They can reach us, go to our website at indigenousvisioning.com, and you can fill out a contact form, or my email is pretty simple. It's long, but pretty simple, barb@indigenousvisioning.com. And my telephone number is 218-280-4372.
Wow, cool. We got another minute here, Barb. It's been really great partnering with you this last a few months with all the great things you do with, Little Moments Count. And this is a Little Moments Count feeling, that you're helping our young ones. And we talk about how important it is to be locked in with our own people, our own nations, and it's how great it has been for the parents too. You have any last minute thought here on the great partnership that we've had?
Ogimaa, did you have a question before I answer that?
I guess I didn't necessarily have a question as much as I had, just a statement that we're sorely lacking in Indigenous young child educators as well, not just childcare providers, but educators. And any childcare provider is going to be an educator in some way. So if you're listening to this and the idea of spending your days making children feel safe and happy and comfortable brings joy to your heart, please reach out to Barb. This is something that our communities really need.
Miigwech, and I hope to hear from you and just to visit and talk about tribal childcare.
Wow, and thanks again with all this great information that you've brought us to Native Roots Radio all across Turtle Island. Really, really appreciate you and all the work that you've done for years. So it's been great to learn more about you and all the great work you've done.
Miigwech for your radio station and Little Moments Count. Gigawabamin.
Gigawabamin.
Haijuoni. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. And if you're listening to the show, you are part of the resistance. We're still here. We are the 7th generation free. Leonard Peltier. Thank you, Ogimaa, and good night.
Thanks for listening to the Little Moments Count radio podcast in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. You can find the Little Moments Count radio podcast wherever you get your podcasts and at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.